I started looking for something which can give me some in-depth knowledge, and then I stumbled upon Friendly. One of my friend was already enrolled. He was like 2 batch prior to me, so he told me that this course is having pretty good understanding. It can give you pretty good understanding on Hive and everything that is open source. You can pretty much take it from there and work on any big data cloud, and you will be able to perform. So then I joined Friendly and so Friendly was the major course that I took. If you are very good with SQL and if you are a little bit lagging in other skills, people may give you a chance to, cover those things when you are working in the project, but vice versa won't be true. So SQL is the most important technical skill that you can cultivate as a data engineer. You have to be very good with your communication skills as well as with SQL. You cannot directly go and write code. It's the last part that you are going to do. But when you are given a problem, most of the time it's brainstorming how you can provide the solution, how you can understand the challenges, how you can take different stakeholders on board. All those things are as important as your technical skills. Every company has its own definition of data engineer. So you should always look into the JD while applying, and even if you apply blindly, once you are getting screened, always ask the JD, because that will help you to understand what are the things that you should have in your pocket while giving interviews.
Hey folks, this is Mansa Nagraj from Trendy Tech, and here is a story of a professional data engineer who holds 6+ years of industry experience in various domains like pharmaceuticals, fintech, digital, and insurance. Rishabh loves working with data, and here's what he has to say. Spark adds spark to my life. It's never boring to shape the data the way I want with a few lines of code. Solving complex data engineering problems is what he craves for in his job. So stay tuned until the end for a twist to know how to love your job. Yeah, hi Rishabh, a very warm welcome, and thank you so much for making some time out and joining us to share your experience. I would request you to give a brief introduction about yourself and then we can get started.
Sure. So thank you so much, Mansa, first of all, for having me over, and it will be like a great session, I guess. So I started my journey in IT sector in 2016 as a SQL developer. I was straight away placed out of college in TCS. That was my first company. There I worked for 4 years, and during that time only I transitioned myself from as a SQL development profile to a data engineering profile. So I was working there as an Azure data engineer, and I continued there till 2020. Then I shifted to AWS data engineering domain. I briefly worked for around a year in AWS as a data engineer. Then again, currently, this is my 4th company. Before this, I was working in Accenture as a data engineer. And there only I actually took a course for data engineering from Friendly to get myself a little more into more knowledgeable into the data engineering domain. So right now I'm again on-premise. I'm working on Hive, Hadoop, Base. Before that it was cloud. Right now it is again back to the basics. So that is the whole journey. I have around 6.5 years of total experience, out of which 5 years is on data engineering. So it has been quite a diverse set of industries that I have covered in my 6 years of journey.
Yes, I did check that out on LinkedIn as well. You have covered a lot of domains, worked on a lot of domains as well. Well, having worked for companies like TCS, Accenture, MetLife, how has these work experiences shaped your skills as a data engineer? If you could let us know on that.
Yeah, so actually when we are working as a data engineer, Mansa, the profile itself is not only technical as per my own understanding, because there is a lot of stakeholder involvement. You have to work with a lot of folks. So when you are working as a data engineer in service-based firm, you get a lot of exposure to different companies, because you are constantly being given new projects. So in TCS, I was working in GE Healthcare, then I moved to GE Transportation, then GE Industrial Solution. So it was from Industrial Solution to Transportation to Healthcare, we met a lot of people from different backgrounds. And how an industry requires data engineering to move with the decision-making process, that actually is quite a good thing to know about. When you come to a product-based firm, then in product-based firm, you are actually having a very diverse set of problems to solve, within a particular industry only. So if you are having a service-based exposure, then you can easily go and work in an industry where you have like completely given one particular set of problems. Like if I'm currently working in MetLife, it's an insurance-based firm. So we now know that, okay, how data engineering is going to be used for solving different problems for the customers and company itself. So the exposure itself in service-based firm is very good. Like it's like 360-degree bird's eye view. But if you have that understanding, then in product-based firm, you will be able to perform much more better, because you will now have a clear understanding on how different businesses work. So that's the basic difference between an industry like service-based and product-based firm.
Product-based companies, yeah, I totally agree with that. So having evolved through various roles in the data industry, what as per you is that one key skill that has, kind of noticeably impacted your professional life?
So technically, if we are in say, then SQL is the most important skill. So I have seen that even if you are working as a Spark developer or you are working as a big data developer, you will constantly work on Hive, you will constantly work with Spark SQL. Yes, in the interviews, they will ask you to write code, but in the end, we all like to do things easy way. So if you are very good with SQL and if you are a little bit lagging in other skills, people may give you a chance to, cover those things when you are working in the project, but vice versa won't be true. So SQL is the most important technical skill that you can cultivate as a data engineer. And the other thing that I would like to add, other than the technical, there is one interpersonal skill that I leveraged a lot, was like understanding the business problems. So you cannot directly go and write code. It's the last part that you are going to do. But when you are given a problem, most of the time it's brainstorming how you can provide the solution, how you can understand the challenges, how you can take different stakeholders on board. All those things are as important as your technical skills. So you have to be very good with your communication skills as well as with SQL. And these two things, I believe, were very helpful in my career so far.
Right. That's a very good tip over there, that you need to understand the domain that you're working on in order to give any particular solution. And yeah, definitely coding is the last thing that is important, even though it is important. But however, having knowledge about the domain is very much relevant and important as well. Yeah. Okay. If I could ask you, what were the different tech stacks that you worked on in your journey as a data engineer?
Yeah, so I have actually worked on three stacks, like to the size. The one was on Azure, other one is AWS, and the third is like we know as open source stack. So this is my first assignment currently on which I'm working on open source stack. Before that, I was working primarily on different clouds. So I started with Azure stack. So in GE, we were working on projects where we had to move a lot of data from on-premise database to Azure database services like Postgres. Also, we had to create a lot of pipelines on Azure Data Factory, Databricks, and Data Lake. So there I got good exposure to Azure. I have completed a couple of my certification and understood how we are actually working on different technologies, how they integrate with each other. Then on AWS, it is little bit different than Azure, because Azure is giving you a lot of things already cooked. Whereas on AWS, you have to set up all the things pretty much on your own. So you have to set up policies, you have to set up everything. So there I was working on Azure, AWS Kinesis, AWS Lambda, S3, VMR. So these were a couple of tools that I used when I was working on AWS stack. And then currently I'm working on Cloudera. So Cloudera based Hadoop cluster. So there I'm working on Hive, Spark, HBase. We are also working on Kafka. There are a couple of cases where we are actually using Flume. So these are the three major stacks on which I have worked in my 6 years of journey in data engineering.
Nice. That's kind of like a very tech stack that you have got exposure to. Excellent. Right. So did you go through any resources or kind of like attend any online courses to sharpen your big data skills as such? And if you did, then how helpful has it been to enhance your knowledge?
So, like when I was working in TCS, my knowledge on data engineering was very limited because I used to go to Microsoft's platform. There is a Learn platform, Microsoft Learn platform. There you can get all the information that you need about Azure data engineering. You will have tutorials. You will have how to use a particular service for solving the business problem. But it is a very siloed approach. You will not get much information as a whole. So there I actually started looking out for a couple of resources online. So I went through YouTube channels. Then also I was not very satisfied because again the same problem. It's like how much you should know, what are the things that you can avoid. If you are going to in a service very deeply, maybe that is not needed. So those are the things that were giving me problem. So I took a couple of courses. The first course I took was from one of the big edtech providers, but I did not like that much. The reason was very simple, that whatever they were teaching me were very basic things, and I had already gone through that on my own, and that too free of cost. So then I started looking for something which can give me some in-depth knowledge, and then I stumbled upon 𝗦ście. One of my friend was already enrolled. He was like full batch prior to me, so he told me that this course is having pretty good understanding. It can give you pretty good understanding on Hive and everything that is open source. You can pretty much take it from there and work on any big data cloud, and you will be able to perform. So then I joined 𝗦ście, and so 𝗦ście was the major course that I took. Other than that, I have taken only one course, like formal course, but I try to prefer, like, I explore myself first. If I feel like, okay, I think a professional help is needed, I myself will not be able to get everything covered. Like, there should be a structure in a course, or there should be a way structurally by which I can learn this particular technology. Then I definitely invest in a course, either on Udemy or going to some like a trainer. So that is my take on.
Yeah, definitely. Knowledge from an experienced person who can guide you in the right direction would be very much needed. A mentor would definitely be needed to take you in the right path, definitely. And I hope that the course has been really helpful for you in gaining the right knowledge that is needed for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Rishabh, yeah. See, I do see that you have switched quite a few of companies for your professional growth. How did you keep yourself interview ready at any given point in time? Like, did you strategize on preparing for the interviews constantly, or upskill, keep yourself upskilled every time, like learning new technologies? What was your strategy for it?
So yeah, actually this particular thing was I learned very late in my career, because if you see, I spent 4 years in my first company. And that was the period I was not actually very sure like where my next step should be. Should I go into data science, or should I go into data engineering? I tried web development also for a couple of months. So I was trying my hands on in different things to understand where my interest is. And during the COVID time, I actually had to face a lot of problems because of some family issues as well as some professional issues. And then I actually took the decision to move out. It was not the decision cautious. It was not a cautious decision per se, but it was kind of like you had to do it. There was no other option. So then I got out of my comfort zone, and so from that time onwards, I actually have followed one simple principle, is that like you should not study from switching point of view. It's like your studies should be part of your daily routine. Like you go for run, you go for gym, you eat daily, you sleep daily. So that is how you should like give 1 hour to your studies. You should have a bigger picture in front of you. Like, okay, suppose in 1 year I will cover these many technologies, I will learn these many things. And you should not have this, okay, after learning these many things, I will switch. It's just that you should have those things constantly in your skill set. We should sharpen your skill every time. It's just that you should be free to use whenever you like. So as of now, if you see, market is in recession. So it is very, very important that people should constantly keep themselves ready. But whether to go for the switch or not, that should be your call. But just you want to switch, then you should study, then definitely that's going to create a problem, because the day you decide to switch, the day you will start studying. Whereas if you are already studying, the day you decide to switch, the day you can start giving interviews. So you can save like 3-4 months of the process if you constantly give 1 hour every day to your studies, rather than preparing yourself for switch when you are actually planning for it. So that is my philosophy. So in one sentence, the day you join a company, the day you start preparing for a kind of possible resignation or something like that. So that is my take on it. You should not use it, but if God forbid if it has to be done, then you should not be like, okay, let me just study for 3 months and then I will give interviews and then I will switch. You should constantly keep yourself ready for that task.
Those were the perfect tips and approach to get, yourself interview ready at any given point in time. Thank you for that. And if you could throw some light on the interview process in the various companies that you applied for.
Okay. So was the last switch I had applied for mostly product-based firms and banks. And my highlight for the last time was that I was being interviewed in Google for technical solution engineer big data. And there were a couple of more firms like 𝗦ście and a couple of more banks. Like as of now, I don't remember the names exactly, but most of them were from product oriented background. So like most of the time, there were a couple of things that I noticed. The first thing is that they will never compromise on SQL. So no matter how good you are in big data, how good you explain the Spark concept, if you do not solve SQL question as per their satisfaction, they will not entertain you. That is the first thing. Second, your problem solving is more important than the concept of big data. So suppose if you know a Spark in and out, but if they give you a Python question and you cannot solve it, then again, that's a big no-no. The third thing is that most of the time what happens is that people focus mostly on solving Spark programs. Like they can write Spark programs very easily, but they actually get stuck when they are writing small code snippets or Python. So that is also a problem, because I have seen that even companies like 𝗦cije will never ask you to write a Spark code of hard level. It's like you can write a Spark program for easy to medium level, that is good enough for them, but they will expect you to write Python codes frequently. So it's like you cannot expect that if you are good in writing Spark program, but if you're not able to write a Python function, you will be accepted. So these are the couple of things that I figured out. So it's like Spark, most of the time people go from the practical approach, but in my experience, interviewers mostly think about, okay, how you solve the problems in Spark. They will ask theoretical questions. Okay, what are the different optimization techniques you have done, and how you solve a particular Spark pipeline issue, what is the out of memory error. So in those questions, you have to be very, very conceptual. You will not have to write the code as such. But if you are expecting that you may have to write some code, then mostly you will be writing the code in SQL and Python. So your technical acumen is just on Python and SQL, even though you are going for a big data engineering profile. So this is one thing that I actually saw in most of the interview rounds. Even in Google, I just had to write 13 lines of Python code, and they said that, okay, that's enough for us. They asked us to debug a Python code and they asked us to write a Python code. And most of the time they stuck with SQL. And when they went to big data domain, they asked okay, how SDFS go, what is name nodes function, what are the data nodes function, how you are going to make SDFS a fault tolerant system, what happens if there are more standby nodes. So big data questions are mostly asked from the theoretical or conceptual standpoint. But as far as technical skills are concerned, you will be just on SQL and Python in 90-95% of the times. And streaming is actually good to know, but touchwood, I have not seen a single question on streaming in 13 or 15 companies that I gave interview for. So it's it is actually kind of thing that we should have, but in big data industry in general, streaming is still not very much common in big data projects. So you will be actually graded on batch processing concepts more than the streaming concepts. So these are the couple of things that I observed while I was doing interviews.
Okay. And how about the projects? Like, were there any questions that were revolved around the projects that you showcased in your resume?
Yes. So this can be a good tip from my side, that whenever you are going for an interview in big data like engineering profile, you should always customize your resume in such a way that you should start with your project on which you have most hands-on. So most of the people, what happens is that they will go and give some random project in which they are working, and once they are grilled on that, once they start interviewers start asking questions on that, they will not be able to answer. So your base, your foundation is your project. So make sure that you are using it very, very cleverly. Never give any project that you have not worked on. And even if you are a newcomer, if you are a beginner, always mention your project first. So based on that project, whatever technologies that you have used in that project, the interviewer will start asking questions. So that becomes a very good foundation for your rest of the technical round, and chances are very high that you will pass the technical round, because you are now giving answers based on the things that you have already done rather than lying about it. So projects are the foundation of any good technical interview. So if you are cracking that particular piece of the puzzle, you will not have to worry about the rest of the things, because even if you are asking, if you are being asked a SQL question, chances are very high that that SQL question you may have encountered it while working on that project. So that's the importance of the project in a big data interview.
I totally agree there, and it's very much important, as you mentioned. Even if you're a beginner in the industry, right? It's important that you implement the project so that you're in a position to answer any of the challenging questions that you might face in the interviews. That is pretty much important, I feel. Thanks for that, Rishabh. And moving on, while you were attending the interviews, right, did you kind of face any challenges as such during any of the interviews? And if you could, share some experience of yours, how did you try to manage, to answer those queries?
Yeah. So there were a couple of issues that I actually encountered. The first thing is that never ever go blindly just because you have practiced one particular technology around 2 months ago. So when I was working in Accenture, I was working on Azure. So in that, there is a tool called as data flow. So data flow is technically Spark only, but you do not have to write code. You just have to drag and drop, and your code is automatically generated by Azure. So I was under the impression that, okay, no matter what, anyway, I have practiced SQL, Spark, Python 2-3 months back, and I will be able to crack. In my first interview in Impetus, I cracked the first round. In the second round, when they start asking me SQL questions, I was able to give them the answer how this query will be written, but they asked me to write a query on make a SQL prompt, and I was not able to code it. The problem was not that I was not knowing. The problem was lack of practice. So whenever you start giving interviews, 20 days to 30 days back, you start practicing SQL, Python, Spark, because that way you will have the confidence to write accurate code. Okay, that is the first thing. Second, never ever judge book by its cover. So my hardest interview was in a service-based bow. Even the Google's interview was easy compared to the interview that I faced in the service-based firm. So I gave the interview in EPAM, and in the second technical round, they started asking me question on new features that have come up in Spark 3, like speculative query execution and all that stuff. I have never thought of, that these kind of questions will come. So EPAM for me was a consulting firm. I was very confident that, okay, I will be able to get past the technical round very easily. But then I realized that, okay, no matter which company you are giving interview for, never ever take them lightly. Chances are that a good interviewer may exist in the company which you think, okay, it's a very small service-based company. There is no level of the interview that I cannot think of, which I cannot crack in this company. So that attitude will get you negative feedback. So the second thing, always take every technical interview like it's an interview of the Microsoft or Google. That will guarantee you maximum success. That's the second thing. Third thing is that make sure you are studying based on the job description. Most of the time what happens that people will apply but they never look at the job description. So sometimes what happens is that they will write data engineer or big data engineer as a profile, but when you look into the job description, you will figure out that okay, most of the time it's a SQL developer role, or most of the time it's a Python development task, or some kind of DevOps. So every company has its own definition of data engineer. So you should always look into the JD while applying, and even if you apply blindly, once you are getting screened and the recruiter is calling you that okay, now we are going to have the first round, always ask the JD, because that will help you to understand what are the things that you should have in your pocket while giving interview. So sometimes what happens that you will go and think that they will be asking questions on Spark, but they will start asking questions on EMR or Kinesis or AWS, and you will be shocked. So always make sure that you thoroughly go through the JD, understand the requirement, and prepare accordingly. So that was point number 3. And point number 4, like never ever underestimate yourself. Just because one question is wrong doesn't mean that your full interview is spoiled. And like in the company, when interviewer is asking you, treat him or her as your friend. It's like you are having a casual discussion, normal discussion with that guy or girl, and always make sure that you note down the questions that you do not answer. It's like not because that particular person is asking you, because if those questions come in the later stage or in any other company's interview, you will be able to answer those questions. So always improve yourself in each and every interview, and that actually gives a positive impression to the interviewer also, that you are actually taking interest in the questions that he or she is asking. So even if you are not able to answer it that at moment, but you are taking efforts that in the future when somebody comes and asks the same question, you should be aware of it. So these are the 4 things that I actually faced, and I thought of like overcoming this. So like to just briefly cover, never ever go without practice. Second is that never underestimate a company. The third is that always go through the JD. And the 4th is that never ever treat like a question answer session. Like interview is not a question answer session. Even if you answer 60% of the question, chances are very high that you will be selected and will be asked to join for second rows. So these are the 4 things that I have observed is actually very, very important and critical when giving data engineering interviews.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those extensive points there on the challenges that you have faced. This will kind of help a lot of our viewers who would be watching this session. And moving on, I would lastly would like to understand from you. I have kind of like heard from a lot of our learners as well as from many data engineers, aspiring data engineers, facing challenges with notice period and salary negotiation as such. So have you ever faced such or been in such scenarios? If you could probably advise, how did you try to tackle these situations?
Yeah, man. So actually, that's the most challenging part of data engineering interview personally for me, because I'm very bad at negotiations. So my take is like whenever I start for a switch, I actually take down pen and paper and write what are my priorities. So what I'm expecting from the next role. Let's suppose I am expecting a perfect work-life balance. I'm expecting kind of decent job security. I'm actually expecting a decent salary hike, like 50% hike or 60% hike. And then the company should be from this location. It should be from this domain. So like 5-6 key points I write first. That gives me understanding what kind of job roles I should apply for. I will not go blindly apply everywhere. I will specifically focus on those areas where I can get those criteria from the next role fulfilled. So that is the first thing. Second, I try to reach to my like expected level of CTC first. So suppose I'm expecting that okay, I should get 50% hike, or I should reach 20 LPA. I will reach 20 LPA, and after that, if I'm giving more interviews, then I will always make sure that okay, I am getting salary better than my expectation, but what about the rest of the points that I was expecting from my role? Is work-life balance is taking a hit? Is like location is different, or is the company is from different domain? Whether that particular company is having stability. So I will try to maintain the balance. I have seen a very bad habit in the newcomers in data engineering that they just run after the money. So there are a couple of people whom I actually met on the LinkedIn. They are actually having salaries better than me, but their work-life balance is actually like not at all good. So they are actually very depressed, and like even though they are having good money in their pocket every month end, but they are not actually enjoying their job, and someday it will kill their enthusiasm and interest in the data engineering. So my thing is that grow organically. It's like if you are having salary of your expectation, and if somebody is giving you 20% more than that, always getting happy is a bad thing. Instead, be alert. Like you should ask this question: why this guy or like institute or organization is giving me 20% more than what I am expecting? Is there any problem? Is there anything that they are trying to hide? Because it becomes carrot in front of your eyes. They will close everything down, and you will keep on looking at the money part. So job is actually the combination of a lot of things. Money is just one part. So you should always look into the rest of the things, prioritize yourself. Okay, if you're a bachelor, you can have a little more work at home, or you have a little more work pressure, that is okay for you. So yeah, you can actually take a hit on work-life balance part, and you can get more money. But that is your personal call. Most of the people will not go for that. So always decide and then act on it. Money part is okay, but you should always keep rest of the things also in your mind while going for the job. And the negotiation is something you should also be very careful about it. So for example, if you are negotiating with a company and the company gives you that much money, suppose in future a new interview happens and you are getting much better than that, then it is very difficult for you to go back and say that, okay, you are actually going extra mile for us, but now I am not going to join you because I got even better. So it's like you should also have that kind of thing in your mind that, okay, if I am going into the negotiation, am I going to join company for sure? So always entertain those people only with whom you are actually interested taking the job offer. Otherwise, you are delaying their process as well, and you are actually making a bad impact on the HR of yours as a professional. So negotiation are also very double-edged sword. So you just use it very carefully. Always engage in negotiation with those companies whom we are actually going to join. Not everybody just for sake of raising money. So that is my actually take on it.
Right. Thank you so much, Rishabh. That was a great advice, wherein there are several other factors apart from CTC which would come into play, which would actually improve your creativity and also make you love your work and job as well. Right, equally. Yeah.
Because it is mostly like you are actually working for like 8 hours, 5 weeks, and you are going to continue like 25 years. So like you should, like, it is good to earn money, but you should also love it. Otherwise, you are going to live on weekend to weekend basis. So personally, for me, that's not life. So if you are earning like once a year, but you are having to wait for Sunday and Saturday to live, I think that's a very bad way of living. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rishabh. That was a really great advice. And also thank you so much for all the information that you shared with us regarding the interviews and the technologies that you should be very skilled at in order to crack the top companies as well. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you loads of success in your future endeavors as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor, for having me.
Well, if you are interested in watching more such informative podcasts and inspiring podcasts, do consider subscribing to the channel and hit on the bell icon for instant notification on new video updates.